I've always been a bit of a tech whiz. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved tinkering with computers, diving deep into the recesses of the internet. But curiosity can be a dangerous thing, and mine has led me down a path that I might not survive. About a month ago, I found myself spiraling into a financial crisis. My job at a tech startup didn't pan out as expected, and I was struggling to make ends meet. Desperation can make you do stupid things, and that's how I found myself on the dark web. I'd heard about people making money through various illegal activities there, drug deals, weapons trading, and more importantly for me, scams. I was arrogant enough to think I could con some shady figure out of a bit of cash. After all, they were criminals. Who would they tell? I stumbled across a forum post offering business opportunities with a large payout for a small investment. It seemed too good to be true, and in any other circumstance, I'd have known better. But I was desperate. I contacted the person behind the post, someone with the alias Black Viper. Black Viper's proposal was simple. I'd invest $500 and they'd return $5,000 within the week. A classic Ponzi scheme, but I thought I'd outsmart them by pretending to send the money using fake transaction screenshots. I'd done similar things before to minor success. What could go wrong? I sent my message to Black Viper, including the fake transaction proof. There was silence for a day. Then, a reply. Nice try. Send the money, or else. My heart skipped a beat. How did they know? Did they have some way to track the transaction back to me? I should have backed out then, but panic pushed me forward. I ignored the message, hoping it was just a bluff. Big mistake. A few days later, I started noticing strange things around my apartment. My laptop camera light would blink randomly, and I'd hear static through my phone as if someone was listening. My paranoia spiked, but I told myself it was just guilt eating away at me. Then, things escalated. I received an email containing photos of my wife, Jessica, and our 2 kids, David and Lily, going about their day. Walking to school, grocery shopping, sitting in our living room. I felt a cold sweat break out all over my body. The message was clear. They were being watched. Attached was a note. Send the money or they get hurt. It was then that I realized I wasn't dealing with an ordinary scammer. I was in over my head with someone who had the resources to track and terrorize me and my family. I was terrified. I couldn't go to the police. What would I tell them? That I was trying to scam someone on the dark web and now they were threatening me? I doubted they'd take me seriously or offer any real help. As days passed, the situation worsened. I found dead animals on our doorstep. First, a bird, then a cat. Each time, there was a note pinned to the carcass with a single word. Tick-tock. It was like a scene out of a horror movie, but this was real, and it was happening to me. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. It was a video message. I hesitated before opening it, knowing it wouldn't be good. The video showed a figure in a dark room, their face obscured by shadows. They held a knife and slowly dragged it across their own arm, carving something into their skin. As blood trickled down, I realized they were carving my wife's name. I retched, barely making it to the bathroom in time to vomit. Whoever this was, they were unhinged, and they had me cornered. I rushed to my computer and transferred the $500, hoping it would end this nightmare. A part of me knew it wouldn't be that easy, but I had to try. After sending the money, I received a message. Good boy, but it's too late to stop now. We're just getting started. I didn't sleep for the next few days, jumping at every sound, expecting the worst. I felt the weight of guilt crushing me, knowing my actions put my family in danger. I started installing cameras around the house and kept a knife under my pillow. But deep down, I knew it was futile. I tried to keep Jessica and the kids out of the loop, not wanting to panic them. I told her it was work stress, that I was just paranoid because of everything going on. I was lying to her face, but what else could I do? How could I explain this madness? One evening, while I was pretending to be calm, a brick crashed through our living room window. Attached was another note. Leave, and you'll regret it. The police came, took some notes, and offered to patrol the area. I could tell they didn't think it was anything more than a random act of vandalism. But I knew better. I was being hunted, and my family was caught in the crossfire. I had to find a way out of this, but every path seemed to lead to a dead end. As the days passed, I noticed unfamiliar cars parked near our house. They never stayed long, but their presence was a constant reminder that we were being watched. I tried to follow one once, but they lost me easily, leaving me more paranoid than before. Then, the nightmares began. Vivid, gruesome dreams of my family being tortured, their screams echoing in my mind long after I woke up. I started drinking to numb the fear and guilt, but it only made things worse. I was spiraling, and I didn't know how to stop. One night, as I sat in the dark, clutching a bottle of whiskey, I received another message. It was a voice recording, distorted but recognizable. It was my daughter, Lily, crying and begging for help. "Daddy, please, make them stop!" I smashed my phone against the wall, rage and terror boiling inside me. I wanted to kill whoever was doing this, to make them pay for the hell they were putting us through. But I was powerless, a puppet on strings, dancing to their twisted tune. I had to act, but every move felt like a step deeper into the abyss. I was trapped, and the walls were closing in. I didn't know if we'd make it out alive, but I had to try. For Jessica, for David and Lily, for myself. I had no choice but to dive deeper into the dark web, to find Black Viper and end this once and for all. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. The darkness was vast, and I was just a lone figure, lost and afraid. But I had no other option. I had to fight back. After the message with Lily's voice, I knew I couldn't sit idly by and wait for things to get worse. I had to dig deeper into the dark web, back to where this nightmare began, and find out who was behind Black Viper. Maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to end this before it destroyed us all. I spent hours each night trawling through the darkest corners of the internet, searching for any trace of Black Viper. Forums, chat rooms, encrypted message boards, I left no stone unturned. It was a different world down there, a place where morality twisted into a grotesque parody of itself. One of the forums I came across was particularly disturbing. It was filled with people bragging about their crimes, sharing stories of their exploits like they were swapping recipes. I read through tales of extortion, murder, and human trafficking, my stomach churning with every word. But amidst the horror, I found a lead, someone mentioning Black Viper as a reliable contact for business. I reached out under a new alias, hoping to coax some information out of them. Pretending to be interested in their services, I asked how I could get in touch with Black Viper. The person responded with a simple message: "Patience is key. Show trust, and you'll be rewarded." In an attempt to prove myself, I offered up my own fake services, claiming I could procure stolen credit card information. I was treading a dangerous line, pretending to be something I wasn't, but it was the only way forward. The person seemed interested, and over several days, I managed to gain their trust. Finally, they agreed to connect me with Black Viper. I received an encrypted link leading to a private chat room. As I entered, my heart pounded in my chest. This was it, my chance to confront the person who had turned my life into a living hell. "Welcome," a message appeared. It was them, Black Viper. I hesitated for a moment, then replied, trying to sound as professional as possible. I told them I was a small-time operator looking to expand my network, hoping to draw them into conversation. To my surprise, they were willing to chat. We exchanged messages for what felt like hours, discussing various schemes and potential collaborations. I was careful not to reveal anything about myself, keeping my responses vague but engaging. Eventually, I managed to steer the conversation toward the topic of threats and extortion. I asked if they ever dealt with people who tried to double-cross them, feigning curiosity. Their response was chillingly casual. "Oh, it happens. People need reminders. A little fear goes a long way." I pressed on, asking how they handled such situations. Black Viper's reply made my blood run cold. "We make examples. Show them what happens when you betray us. Family, friends, everyone pays the price." I knew then that they wouldn't stop until they had completely broken me. My mind raced, trying to think of a way to turn the tables. I asked if they had any partners, hoping to identify their network. But Black Viper was cautious, refusing to disclose anything more than vague hints. Despite my fear, I pushed further, asking about the methods they use to track people. I tried to frame it as if I was interested in learning from them, maybe incorporating their tactics into my own repertoire. They boasted about their team of hackers and informants, people scattered across the globe who could gather intel on anyone, anywhere. The revelation sent a shiver down my spine. I realized just how deep this rabbit hole went. I wasn't dealing with a lone psychopath, but a well-organized network capable of unimaginable horrors. My mind raced with the implications. My family was up against a force far more dangerous than I'd ever anticipated. In a moment of desperation, I asked them what they wanted from me. I framed it as a business inquiry, hoping they'd reveal their endgame. Black Viper responded with a cryptic message. Loyalty and silence are rewarded. Prove your worth, and we may have a place for you. It was then that I understood the full scope of their operation. They weren't just extorting me. They were trying to recruit me, to pull me into their web of darkness and despair. But I couldn't let that happen. I had to find a way to stop them, to protect my family, and end this nightmare once and for all. Over the next few days, I meticulously planned my next move. I started looking into cybersecurity tools, learning how to encrypt my communications and shield my online presence. I knew I had to cover my tracks if I wanted to have any chance of fighting back. I also began gathering information on potential allies, people who might help me take down Black Viper and their network. It was a long shot, but I was running out of options. I couldn't do this alone, and I needed to find someone I could trust. Meanwhile, things at home continued to deteriorate. Jessica was growing more suspicious of my behavior, and I could see the strain on her face. She noticed the way I jumped at shadows, the way I barely slept, and the way I constantly checked the security cameras. "Is everything okay?" she asked one night, her voice laced with worry. I wanted to tell her the truth, to unload the burden I was carrying, but I couldn't bear the thought of dragging her deeper into this nightmare. "Just work stress," I lied, forcing a smile. "It'll blow over soon." She didn't look convinced, but she nodded, trusting me to handle it. It only made the guilt gnaw at me more fiercely. I was lying to the woman I loved, endangering her and our children because of my stupidity. As I delved further into the digital abyss, I realized I needed leverage, something I could use against Black Viper. I started hacking into their system, tracing their operations, trying to find anything I could use to blackmail them, or at least level the playing field. Days turned into nights, a blur of code and caffeine as I worked tirelessly to find a chink in their armor. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon something. A list of clients, transactions, and messages detailing their criminal activities. It was a gold mine, evidence that could bring their entire operation crashing down. I was ecstatic, the thrill of victory coursing through me. But I knew I had to be careful. If Black Viper realized what I'd found, they'd come after me with everything they had. I needed to act quickly and decisively, but the question was how. I couldn't risk contacting the authorities directly, not without solid proof that they'd believe me. I had to find a way to leak the information without drawing attention to myself. Maybe I could send it to a journalist or an online watchdog group, someone who could expose Black Viper for what they truly were. As I formulated my plan, I received another message. This time, it was a video. It showed Jessica and the kids at the park, laughing and playing, completely unaware of the eyes watching them. My heart sank as I read the accompanying note. "Enjoy them while you can." The message was clear. I was running out of time. I had to act, and I had to do it soon. But every move felt like a gamble, a risk that could either save us or doom us all. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, and there was no waking up. In that moment of desperation, I realized something important. I wasn't alone. I had to reach out to others who might have been victims of Black Viper, people who could help me build a case and bring this monster down. I had to fight back, not just for myself, but for everyone they'd terrorized. With renewed determination, I set to work, knowing that failure was not an option. My family's lives depended on it, and I'd do whatever it took to protect them. The darkness was closing in, but I was ready to face it head on. With the evidence in my hands, I knew I had something valuable. Black Viper's operation was far more extensive than I'd imagined, and this information could dismantle their entire network. But the danger was immense. If they realized what I had, they'd stop at nothing to silence me permanently. I needed help, and I needed it fast. But I couldn't just trust anyone. This was the dark web. Betrayal was the norm. I needed allies who had a vested interest in seeing Black Viper fall. It was time to take a gamble. Through the forum where I'd first learned about Black Viper, I started reaching out to other users who seemed disgruntled or had hinted at being wronged by them. I crafted careful messages offering a trade, information for safety. I proposed forming an alliance, a united front to bring Black Viper down. Responses trickled in slowly, each more paranoid than the last. People were cautious, afraid of traps and further entanglements with Black Viper. But I managed to find a few willing to talk, people who had lost money, dignity, or worse, to Black Viper's schemes. Among them was a user named Ghost, who claimed to have once been part of Black Viper's inner circle. Ghost said they had been blackmailed and betrayed by Black Viper, and they wanted revenge as much as I wanted safety. It was a risky alliance, but I didn't have much choice. Ghost and I communicated through encrypted messages, each wary of the other, but aware of our mutual goal. Ghost revealed that Black Viper was more than just a singular entity. It was a syndicate, a sprawling network of criminals with tentacles reaching into every corner of the web. Taking them down would require precision and cunning. We began formulating a plan, a multi-pronged attack designed to expose Black Viper's operations to the world. The first step was to secure the evidence I had, ensuring it could be released without being traced back to me. Ghost helped me set up an anonymous Dropbox on the dark web, a place where the files could be uploaded and downloaded by those who knew the password. Next, we needed to gain the attention of someone who could actually make a difference. Ghost suggested reaching out to a journalist known for exposing cybercrimes, someone who had connections to law enforcement. I was hesitant at first, afraid of bringing more people into this mess. But Ghost convinced me it was the only way to ensure justice was served. With Ghost's help, I drafted a message to the journalist, detailing the evidence and the threat Black Viper posed. I included instructions on how to access the Dropbox, emphasizing the need for discretion. Every keystroke felt like a step closer to either salvation or destruction. While waiting for a response, I doubled down on securing my home. I installed more cameras, upgraded the security system, and even convinced Jessica to take the kids on a vacation to her parents' place. I spun it as a chance for her to relax, but she saw through my facade. Still, she agreed, sensing my desperation, but not knowing the full extent of our danger. The days crept by with excruciating slowness, each tick of the clock a reminder of the precarious balance I was trying to maintain. I was on edge, jumping at every sound, every creak of the floorboards. The constant surveillance, both real and imagined, wore on my nerves. Then, late one night, I received a reply from the journalist. They were interested, intrigued by the tantalizing glimpse of the story I'd offered. They wanted to meet, to verify the information and discuss the next steps. Fear clashed with hope in my chest. This was the break I'd been waiting for, but it also meant stepping further into the spotlight. I couldn't let Black Viper find out, couldn't afford any mistakes. I agreed to the meeting, setting a time and place that minimized risk. I chose a crowded cafe, a place bustling with people, believing it would deter any overt actions from Black Viper. The journalist arrived punctually, a wary glint in their eyes. We exchanged a few pleasantries, but it was clear we both had our guards up. I handed them a flash drive containing a fraction of the evidence, enough to prove I was serious, but not enough to endanger everything if it was compromised. As they examined the files on their laptop, I watched their expression shift from skepticism to shock. This is huge, they whispered, eyes darting around as if expecting shadows to leap from the walls. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. Can you help? Can you bring them down? The journalist glanced at me, then at the screen. If what you're showing me is real, then yes, but we need more. We need corroboration, names, faces. Can you get that? I hesitated. Pushing deeper into Black Viper's network was dangerous, but it was the only way to ensure their downfall. I agreed, knowing it was a risk I had to take. As we parted ways, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was nearing its end. But as I made my way home, paranoia crept back in. What if Black Viper had found out? What if they were already onto me? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow threatening. As the hours dragged on, I found myself staring at the security monitors, watching for any sign of movement outside the house. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Ghost, urgent and foreboding. They know. Get out now. My heart leapt into my throat. I bolted upright, adrenaline surging through my veins. I didn't have time to think, only to act. I grabbed the essentials, phone, wallet, the flash drive with the remaining evidence, and fled into the night. As I drove away, I cast one last look at the house, knowing it might be the last time I'd see it. I couldn't stay. I couldn't risk leading Black Viper to my family. I needed to disappear, at least for a while, until I could regroup and figure out my next move. In the rearview mirror, headlights flared to life behind me, engines roaring to life. Panic surged as I realized I was being followed. Black Viper was closing in, and I was running out of time. I pushed the pedal to the floor, speeding down empty streets, weaving through alleys and back roads. My mind raced, desperately searching for a safe haven, somewhere to lay low and figure out my next step. As I drove, one thought kept echoing in my mind. I couldn't give up. I had to protect my family, to finish what I'd started. But I was alone, hunted, and running out of options. The darkness closed in around me, and I realized I was venturing into uncharted territory, a fight for survival that would test every ounce of my resolve. The stakes had never been higher, and the consequences of failure more dire. But there was no turning back. I was committed, and I would see this through to the bitter end. Whatever it took, whoever I had to become, I would fight. For Jessica, for David, and Lily. For myself. The streets blurred by as I raced through the night, the headlights of my pursuers ever present in the rearview mirror. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, my thoughts a chaotic jumble of fear and determination. I knew the roads well enough to have a fighting chance, but I needed more than familiarity. I needed a plan. I took a sharp turn onto a side street, tires screeching, trying to put as much distance as possible between me and them. I had no idea how many were following me or how far they were willing to go, but I couldn't afford to underestimate them. Black Viper had resources, and they weren't shy about using them. The city was a labyrinth, and I was the rat being hunted. I zigzagged through alleyways, cutting through quiet neighborhoods, trying to lose them in the maze. But they were relentless, shadows always lurking just out of reach. I could feel the net tightening around me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. Desperation fueled my actions as I veered onto a highway, hoping the speed would give me an edge. The city lights faded in the distance, replaced by the dark expanse of the open road. My mind raced as fast as the car, seeking an advantage, some way to turn the tables. I knew I had to get off the grid, disappear completely, at least until I could figure out my next move. My thoughts turned to the cabin in the woods, an old family retreat that hadn't been used in years. It was secluded, off the map, a perfect hideaway. But getting there meant shaking my pursuers, and that was easier said than done. The night stretched on, a blur of headlights and adrenaline. I could feel the fatigue creeping in, threatening to dull my senses. But I pushed it aside. I couldn't afford to slow down, not with everything on the line. I decided to make a risky move. I headed for an industrial area, hoping to use the maze of warehouses and factories to my advantage. The roads were deserted, the silence broken only by the roar of engines echoing through the empty streets. I darted between buildings, the narrow lanes a blur of steel and shadows. My pursuers followed, their headlights cutting through the darkness, but I knew the terrain better. I took a sudden left, skidding into an alley just wide enough for my car, praying they'd lose sight of me. I killed the engine and lights, holding my breath as I waited in the darkness. The roar of engines faded, the headlights swept past, and then silence. I dared not move, fear keeping me rooted in place. I listened intently, every creak and rustle amplified in the stillness. Minutes passed, stretching into eternity. Finally, I allowed myself to exhale, relief flooding through me. I had lost them, at least for now, but I knew it was only a temporary reprieve. They'd be back, searching, hunting, and I had to stay one step ahead. With a shaky breath, I started the car, keeping the engine low as I navigated out of the alley. I had to get to the cabin, had to regroup and plan my next move. I couldn't afford another close call like that. The drive to the cabin was tense, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a possible harbinger of danger. The road wound through dense forests, the trees closing in around me like sentinels guarding secrets. It felt as if the darkness itself was alive, watching and waiting. Finally, I arrived at the cabin, the old wooden structure standing silent and solitary amidst the trees. I parked the car out of sight, covered by the underbrush, and made my way inside. It was dusty and cold, but it felt safe, a sanctuary in the chaos. I secured the doors and windows, setting up a rudimentary alarm system with cans and string. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. Exhaustion threatened to overtake me, but I couldn't afford to rest. Not yet. I pulled out my laptop and set it up on the old kitchen table, the screen casting an eerie glow in the dim interior. I needed to contact Ghost, to let them know what had happened, and to see if there was any update from the journalist. But first, I had to make sure my connection was secure. After double-checking my encryption and rerouting through multiple proxies, I sent a message to Ghost, detailing the chase and my current location. I asked if they had any intel on Black Viper's movements, any clue as to their next move. While I waited for a response, I took stock of my situation. I had some food and water, enough to last a few days if needed. The cabin was isolated, with no phone service or electricity apart from a small generator. It was a good place to lie low, but I couldn't stay forever. My laptop pinged with a message from Ghost. "Stay put. They're searching, but you're off their radar for now. The journalist is working on verifying the info. We need more time." Time. The one thing I didn't have. Every second felt like a countdown to disaster. But I had to trust Ghost and the journalist, had to believe that this would end in our favor. It was a fragile hope, but it was all I had. I spent the night in a restless vigil, every creak of the cabin setting my nerves on edge. I felt exposed, vulnerable, a sitting duck waiting for the inevitable. But I couldn't give in to fear. I had to stay sharp, to keep fighting. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I made a decision. I couldn't just wait for the storm to break over me. I needed to take action, to find a way to strike back at Black Viper before they found me again. I decided to take a calculated risk, to hack back into Black Viper's network. If I could find a weak spot, something that would cripple their operations, it might buy us more time. It was dangerous, but I was out of options. I spent hours combing through their systems, my fingers flying over the keyboard, my mind focused and clear. I found a back door, an old security flaw they hadn't patched, and used it to access their communications. What I saw sent a chill down my spine. They were planning something big, a move that would cement their control over the dark web's criminal underworld. I couldn't decipher all the details, but it involved a series of attacks on their rivals, a display of power meant to intimidate and dominate. I knew I had to act fast. I copied as much of the data as I could, preparing to send it to the journalist. This was the proof they needed, the evidence that would expose Black Viper's reach and influence. But I also knew it would make me a target again. As I prepared the files, I received another message from Ghost. "Be careful. They're getting restless. If they find out you're still in play, they'll come after you with everything they've got." I swallowed hard, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I had to finish this, to bring Black Viper to justice, not just for my sake, but for everyone they'd hurt. With a final keystroke, I sent the files to the journalist, attaching a message. "This is it. Make it count." Then I shut down my laptop and sat back, exhaustion washing over me. The fight wasn't over, but the end was in sight. I knew the next few days would be critical, a test of endurance and resolve. But I was ready to face whatever came, to stand against the darkness and reclaim my life. As I sat in the silence of the cabin, I felt a flicker of hope. I had allies, I had evidence, and I had a chance. It was more than I'd had in a long time, and I wasn't about to let it slip away. The battle was far from over, but I was determined to see it through to the end, no matter what it took. Black Viper wouldn't win, not if I had anything to say about it. The hours dragged on, each second a heavy weight pressing down on me. I was exhausted, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. But there was no turning back now. I had taken my shot, sent the evidence out into the world, and now all I could do was wait for the fallout. I stayed holed up in the cabin, the silence only broken by the occasional rustle of leaves outside. Every sound made my heart skip a beat, every shadow a potential threat. I was hyper-aware of everything, knowing that Black Viper could find me at any moment. It was late afternoon when my laptop pinged with an incoming message. I rushed over, praying it was news from the journalist or Ghost. It was the latter. "The files are being verified. It's all over the forums. Black Viper is panicking." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It was working. The plan was working. But Ghost's next message sent a chill through me. "They know it's you. They're sending people to silence you. Get ready." I had expected this, but it didn't make the reality any easier to face. I was a marked man, and the storm was coming. I quickly gathered my belongings, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. There was no running now. I had to stand my ground. I fortified the cabin as best I could, setting up makeshift barricades and securing the windows. I knew it wouldn't hold them for long, but I needed every advantage I could get. My mind raced through the possibilities, trying to anticipate their moves. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the woods into shadow. I felt the darkness closing in, suffocating, but I pushed the fear aside. I had to stay focused, to be ready for whatever came. Then, I heard it. A car engine, distant but unmistakable, growing louder as it approached. My heart thundered in my chest as I moved to the front window, peering through the gap in the curtains. Headlights pierced the gloom, cutting a path through the trees as the vehicle came to a stop just outside the cabin. I saw figures emerging from the car, shadows moving in the darkness. They were armed, their intentions clear. This was it, the final showdown. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The first figure approached the front door, testing the handle. When it didn't budge, they stepped back, signaling to the others. I watched as they circled the cabin, looking for another way in. My grip tightened on the makeshift weapon I'd fashioned, a metal rod I'd found in the shed. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. A window shattered in the back, the sound sharp and jarring in the stillness. I moved quickly, positioning myself near the entry point, ready to defend myself. Adrenaline surged through me, sharpening my senses, heightening my awareness. The first attacker climbed through the broken window, their silhouette stark against the faint light from outside. I struck quickly, the rod connecting with a sickening thud. They crumpled to the floor, unconscious or worse. I didn't have time to check. More footsteps followed, heavy and deliberate. I knew I couldn't take them all head on, not with the limited resources I had. I needed to be strategic, to use the cabin's layout to my advantage. I retreated down the hallway, drawing them away from the entrance, hoping to bottleneck their approach. As I moved, I heard a voice calling out, low and threatening. "You've made a big mistake. You should have stayed hidden." I didn't reply, keeping my focus on the task at hand. I couldn't let their taunts rattle me, couldn't afford to lose my nerve. I reached the end of the hallway, turning to face the approaching shadows. The fight was brutal, a desperate struggle for survival. I managed to take down 2 more attackers, using the narrow space to my advantage, but I was outnumbered, and they were relentless. As I fought, I realized that they weren't just here to kill me, they were here to make an example, to send a message to anyone who dared to stand against Black Viper. But I couldn't let them win, couldn't let them erase everything I'd fought for. In a moment of clarity, I remembered the generator, a small but potentially decisive advantage. I made a break for it, sprinting to the back of the cabin where it was housed. I could hear the attackers regrouping, their voices filled with frustration and anger. I reached the generator, fumbling with the controls, hoping my plan would work. If I could create a distraction, a momentary advantage, it might be enough. I hit the switch, plunging the cabin into darkness, the sudden absence of light disorienting us all. Using the cover of night, I slipped past the attackers, heading for the front door. I could hear them cursing, their flashlights cutting erratic paths through the dark. I needed to get outside, to make a run for it, but I knew they'd be right behind me. As I reached the door, it burst open, light flooding in as a new figure entered. I stumbled back, blinking against the glare, my heart sinking as I recognized the person standing there. It was Ghost, but not as an ally. They had betrayed me, lured me into a trap from the beginning. The realization hit me like a physical blow, knocking the breath from my lungs. I was surrounded, outmaneuvered, and out of options. Ghost's voice was cold, devoid of the camaraderie we had shared online. "You really thought you could win? Black Viper doesn't lose. They just make examples." Despair washed over me, but I couldn't give up. Not now. I had come too far, risked too much. I took a step forward, ready to fight to the last, when a new sound cut through the tension. A siren, loud and clear, approaching rapidly. It was the police, drawn by the reports of disturbance, by the gunshots and chaos. Ghost's expression shifted, their bravado slipping as they realized the situation had changed. The cavalry had arrived, and it was my last hope. The attackers hesitated, torn between finishing the job and escaping before the authorities closed in. It was the break I needed, a moment of confusion and uncertainty. I lunged at Ghost, knocking them off balance, then bolted for the door. The night air was cool against my skin as I ran, pushing myself beyond exhaustion, driven by the instinct to survive. Behind me, I heard the chaos unfolding. Shouts, gunfire, the screech of tires as vehicles fled the scene. I reached the tree line, collapsing against a trunk, my chest heaving as I tried to catch my breath. In the distance, I saw the flashing lights of police cars, officers moving to secure the area. I was safe, at least for now. The aftermath was a blur of interviews, statements, and endless questions. The journalist's work, combined with the police intervention, had exposed Black Viper's operation, leading to arrests and the dismantling of their network. Ghost had vanished, slipping away in the chaos, but I knew they wouldn't be able to hide forever. The authorities were relentless, determined to bring everyone involved to justice. As for me, I was left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild the life that had been shattered. It wasn't easy, facing the consequences of my actions, but it was a chance to start anew. Jessica and the kids returned, their relief palpable. I had a lot to explain, a lot of apologies to make, but they were willing to forgive, to understand the depths of desperation that had driven me to this point. In the end, I had faced the darkness and emerged on the other side. It had cost me dearly, but I had won. A small victory against a tide of chaos and corruption. As I stood outside the cabin, looking up at the stars, I felt a sense of peace. I had fought for my family, for myself, and for the countless others who had been caught in Black Viper's web. And in doing so, I had reclaimed my life, forging a path toward redemption and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time.